Like I said, this is training 101 for World Series of Poker for next year's Vegas event.
That's right.
First off, let's take care of some business. The bathrooms are out and all the way to the right. If you have to leave during the session, I don't expect you back because it's like a mile away. Please, we don't really make a lot of money, so we can't really bribe you financially, but please fill out the survey. It's not like you're going to see us anyway, so you might, again, later, so you might as well give us a outstanding. Honestly, if you like our content and our style and stuff, this helps us present next year. Let's start with introductions. Who are we? And I mean myself and Jeff. So first off, Jeff is a rock star. No, really, he's a rock star.
Glory days.
He's actually in the VMware band,
Elastic.
named after one of the early ESXi deployments called Elastic Sky.
Trivia question.
Trivia question. He's also an international man of mystery. And if he loses his job at VMware, he clearly has skills at selling tequila at the airport at Cabo San Lucas. He is clearly very, very confident, because anyone who wears this is confident.
Thank you, Mom, for releasing my baby pictures to the public.
That was taken yesterday. But truthfully, he is a tech marketing manager for the management business unit at VMware. We focus on vRealize operations.
Thank you, Mr.
I get to mess with him, he gets to mess with me.
So who is this fine, upstanding young man next to me here? Let's see. Mr. Benjamin Todd. He is obviously a ladies' man. Yes, that's a mullet. So to steal a line from Joe Dirt, did your hair grow in all white trashy like that? He is a foodie. There's your stack of food. That's your gourmet food platter right there. 5 minutes, you polish that off?
I'd like to point out that this was in Austria, so there was some culture there. I was also like 28.
And Ben can fly, so we're going to fly through this a little bit. So here he is flying. Not so well, though. Falling gracefully, as they would say, right? And he is a technical marketing manager for the Management Suites business unit. We're on the same team, so we have a lot of fun with each other. Whoops. I'm going to throw some things up on the screen, and I want you to shout out the first thing that comes into your head, right? Shout whatever comes in your mind. All right. This will help me gauge who I'm dealing with here today. So, all right.
Thank you.
All right, I'm feeling it. Okay, all right, I'm feeling a little something. Oh, Texas in the house. One more. All right, I've got a feel now. I've got a flavor of what I'm dealing with. All right, and I like what I'm dealing with. I like it. So we're going to do some meat and potato stuff up front. Ben's kind of the dessert. Some people like dessert before the meal, but we're actually going to go in, standard order, if you will, and cover some meat and potato stuff. So vSphere 6. Everybody's on vSphere 6? 2 of you are on vSphere 6. Holy moly. vSphere 5X? 5.5? Okay, so we're going to give you some compelling reasons, hopefully, to inspire you to make that jump to vSphere 6, right? This is titled... the session is titled Managing Apps with vSphere 6 and VROps 6, right? So we're going to give you some motivation on why you want to go there.
And we have an hour, so we're hitting just a few salient points.
Exactly. So, is this me or you? I don't know. We share. So vMotion update. So vSphere 6 came out, what was it, February-ish, I think? So it's been out for a little while, so you've heard some of this stuff possibly, but we're going to tie it together on how it's going to help you manage your apps, right? So vMotion updates, these are all really important. So you can now vMotion from a switch type to another switch type. So from a standard switch to a distributed to distributed, etc. And now here's a biggie, cross vCenter vMotions. You guys heard about that? vMotion across from one vCenter to another. That's kind of a big deal. So you 5.5 laggards out there, get to 6.0, and you'll be able to do a lot of cool things from a migration standpoint to moving workloads across clusters, across vCenters, et cetera. So that alone was pretty compelling for me to get it spun up in our lab. We're going to demo some of those things about how we'll show you actually vMotioning workloads between vCenters, both live, and I don't think we're doing cold ones, though. So long distance vMotion, heard of it? Kind of a big deal, right? So you can now vMotion workloads from one side of the country to the other side of the country. Some caveats, obviously, just like anything else, there are, sort of thresholds that you can't breach or it won't work, but you'll get up to, you can do long distance vMotion if you have latency below 100 milliseconds. Okay, so that's not too bad. That's not too high. And then vMotion network is now fully supported over layer 3. So you could have a vCenter in an IP space in San Francisco, another vCenter, another IP space in New York, and be able to vMotion between them if they're routable, if they can contact each other. Right?
It used to be that your vMotion network had to be on the same network, right? Now it can be routed.
So important point there, though, if you vMotion your workloads across the country, if you want your workloads to keep the same IPs, then you'd have to have a stretch layer 2. Right, so and there's various technologies to do that. NSX would be one of those, right? So long distance vMotion, some use cases, you see them here, disaster avoidance, load balancing between sites, et cetera. So I'm going to cruise along here, or else I'm going to eat into Ben's time. So this is just a requirements slide that I threw in there, so you can read it a little bit later. Some key points here, SSO domain. So if you're doing vMotion between vCenters, or across vCenters, I should say, they need to be in the same SSO domain to use the GUI to perform that action. You can use the API to do them between vCenters that are in different SSO domains, right? So, but if you want to use the GUI, they need to be sharing the SSO domain. Then what you get is enhanced linked mode. So when you connect to a vCenter with the web client, you'll actually see all your inventory of every vCenter that's in that same SSO domain. Make sense? All right. 250 megabits per second bandwidth, that's unchanged. That's as vMotion has always been, right? So you need that much pipe to do the vMotions, no matter if it's long distance or not. And then again, there are a number of features on the right-hand side that are going to be what's going to be retained if you actually move those workloads from vCenter to vCenter, okay? And by the way, interactive, please stop and ask questions. If we feel it's an appropriate question, we might answer it. But please stop and ask questions if we need to, except for this gentleman in the hat. So, no, go ahead, sir.
Last slide.
Yep.
At the very top bullet on the left. So doesn't that kind of eliminate vCenter to vCenter 5.5?
5.5 doesn't play in cross vCenter vMotions. That's correct. You got to have vSphere 6 on both sides to do cross vCenter vMotions.
But what his point is that going from 5.5 to 6.0, yeah, you need to land in 6.0.
Exactly. So RDMs, a little background on device mappings, raw device mappings. You guys familiar with those? If you're running SQL clusters, you probably have them set up, right? So RDM is basically a mapping file, right? So you present the actual LUN to the guest in the VM. And there's a mapping file that basically handles all the metadata on how that LUN gets written to and read and written to. Why use an RDM? Again, for performance reasons. You might have some SCSI, or excuse me, some SAN-based tools that you want to run from within a guest VM, and so you would need to have that LUN presented to that guest in the raw device mode for that to happen. So again, the most common use case for RDMs is Windows Server failover clustering. You guys got Windows Server failover clusters, SQL clusters, Hyper-V, what have you? Yeah, exactly.
So the point of this, right, is that vMotion is awesome. Customers call it black magic. But if you've got a SQL Server failover cluster instance in a Microsoft cluster, and you're using RDMs for those purposes to cross, different hosts in your cluster, you couldn't move them around. So when it was time to patch, you had to move the instance around, bring that instance, that node down, patch it, and all that stuff. Now, if you've got to do work on the physical box, you've got to move things around, you just treat them like all the other VMs now.
Could anyone use that? Would anyone use the vMotion of RDM? Absolutely, yeah. So when I found out about it again, I was immediately, I got to update my lab. I got to get vSphere 6 in my lab, right? So RDM compatibility modes, if you know about RDMs, you probably know they have two compatibility modes, physical and virtual. Typically, you would use the physical. The use case would be if you want to do cluster across boxes, so you have part of your cluster on one physical host, part of the cluster is on another physical host. You would need the physical RDMs to do the clustering across boxes. Right, virtual RDMs use case if you're doing some dev stuff, you're doing cluster in a box, everything's running on the same host. Basically, that's a use case potentially for the virtual raw device mapping.
Also, virtual allows you to do snapshotting and that kind of thing.
Exactly. Some other things with physical, you can do larger LUN, so you can break that 2 terabyte limit if you need to. The virtual LUN has a 2 terabyte limit. The physical device mapped LUN does not. So you can now vMotion those SQL nodes that were stuck on a host. You got to do maintenance on a host. You couldn't pull them off before. We had this problem in 5X all the time. We wanted to do maintenance on our hosts, and we had to shut the servers down, the SQL servers down, because we couldn't vMotion them. Now,
like half your lab is p-sodding on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. So now we can actually do the vMotions of those SQL nodes.
So Alt-Tab to close.
All right. So you know what? Here, let me do this. No, just do this.
There you go.
So we can these demos. We actually were going to do this as a live demo and prayed to the demo gods. We did some sacrifices and so forth, and sure enough, our lab took a dump. But
he blames it on me, by the way.
Yeah, anytime he gets his filthy fingers in the lab, things kind of go crazy. I asked him, I said, Ben, Log Insight is showing me that at midnight last night, something went crazy, SSO broke, everything is down.
Well, I was in the lab at midnight last night.
Exactly. So there was a trail.
And you guys have seen the network here, right? So we're all making excuses for not doing a live demo, but truthfully, this is a live demo in our lab. It's just not live to you guys.
Right, so what we did, we actually got the lab up and running again and captured this demo like this morning or yesterday. So this is actually running from the live demo environment, but again, because it did what it did a couple days ago, we said let's just can it. So this is the demo showing, so you built these, you want to walk through these?
Okay. Yeah. So we're doing 2 vMotion demos, non-RDM VM, just standard VM, your bog standard. This is a Linux box, CentOS. It's running Zephyr. I'm going to do a migration from one vCenter to the other. So I go out, simply do a migration. Going to tell it to run both host and storage. I pick my target. So by the way, it was running on vCenter 1, right? I don't think I highlighted that, but you can see it in the background. I also didn't highlight what storage it's on, but I promise you this is not shared storage between our vCenters. Just trust me, you know. I don't work for the IRS. I validated against a cluster on another vCenter. Find the target data store. Validates against that. Again, this is not shared storage. I'm not targeting the same data store that it's on. This is not a fiber channel mapping to the same array. I don't care about what folder it's sitting in. Networking, right? So look at the naming convention. We're VLAN tagging in both vCenters the same VLAN tags, but distributed vSwitches are named based on the vCenter that they're sitting in. So I'm going from vCenter 1 to vCenter 2. My distributed vSwitch doesn't have to have the same name. Anyone ever tried this migration before and you have to name them the same and all that good stuff? So it's up to you to make sure that IP traffic will flow on that target VDS, right? Now, what if you have a VM with multiple vNICs? And you want to be very prescriptive, this will be a little bit more evident in the next one, about which VDSs you send them to. In non-advanced, it will take any vNIC that's on this distributed vSwitch and target it to that distributed vSwitch. If I want to pick this vNIC to go to that distributed vSwitch, that's what advanced is about. By the way, he told me that. So I didn't know.
I did, and you listened.
I did, occasionally. And the rest is watching paint dry. Boom. Pretty cool. So let's go demo moving something with a physical RDM. By the way, the red boxes are to trick you into thinking I'm doing this live, and that's why I left them up there. If I hit F1, I simply click where the red boxes are, it would look completely live to you guys. But I'm an honest fellow. So just to prove to you that I'm running a physical RDM, there's a physical RDM, right? Compatibility mode physical. 200 gig, it's the data LUN for my SQL instance. Now I'm only going to change, because I'm staying within the vCenter, I'm only going to change host. Now I did not trim the timings on this migration. Pick the cluster. Now I'm going from compute cluster to management cluster, because I've got to do maintenance. Actually, the reality is that my VI admin has only given me 2 hosts, and I have a 3-node cluster, and my anti-affinity rules are blowing up in my ear. So to satisfy the requirement for another host, I evacuate. No comments, Jeff. Oh, by the way, here we go. This is a little more information, right? I've got 2 VNICs in this. One is for Heartbeat Network. I'm doing the same thing, but I could be sending them to different VLAN, different distributed vSwitches. Schedule it. Now this is the true timing. I did not trim it, right? I promise I didn't trim it. So I just went from one cluster to another cluster, right? Of a running, by the way, I'm running Mike Langdon, it's his fault. I'm running a script that he gave me in Perl that hammers the CPU on that VM, right? So I'm beating the snot out of the thing. The CPU of that VM is like 98% or something. And there it is. So we didn't have to change anything in our lab. We didn't have to do anything. There's very little special parameters. It's just voodoo black magic. So, all right.
Sweet. Worth the price of admission right there to be able to move that stuff like that. That's saved us so much time.
So the point of the abstract for this session was how is vSphere 6 and vRops 6 helping you guys make better use of the better use of the resources that you have and spend less time trying to figure out how to get your job done, right? So, hand it back to him.
All right. So, vRealize Operations Manager, yeah, you guys are using it, familiar with it, using it. Standard Edition, who's using Standard Edition with no plugins, right? So Standard Edition is going to give you your vSphere coverage. Basically, all your vSphere objects. You register your vCenter with vRops, pulls vCenter every 5 minutes, pulls all the data in. If you want to start managing your environment beyond just vSphere, so you want visibility into your storage or your networking or hybrid cloud, that's where you start to step up into the Advanced Edition. So who's running Advanced Edition? Someone shout out some of the management packs that they have installed in that edition. What was that? Pure? Okay. Anybody else who's using some management packs out there?
TMC, VCE.
Good, good. So there's the delineation. So basically, standard is, again, vSphere only. Advanced is your infrastructure items, so your storage, your networking, and so forth. Enterprise is going to give you your operating system application, I should say, your application visibility. So things like Oracle, SAP, SQL, and so forth. That's when you step up to the vRops Enterprise Edition.
We include OS as part of Advanced. We consider OS to be part of the infrastructure from a vRops perspective.
So what I'm showing you here on this screen is basically you have consistent operations across the whole SDDC, right? SDDC is the message we're preaching. You've probably heard that acronym 3,480 times in the last day, I'm sure. So if you have an SDDC, if you're running NSX, for example, if you're using our vCloud Air, we have management packs for all of those things. So these three that I'm mentioning here, the management pack for storage devices, anyone heard of that? So that's going to give you visibility into your fabric, so your storage fabric. So everything from your hosts up to the storage arrays themselves, the management pack for storage devices is going to show you everything that's in the middle, right? So if you're running iSCSI type storage protocols, you'll get information on the network switches and the switch ports and so forth, right? If you're running fiber channel protocols, you'll be getting information about your zoning, your fiber fabrics, etc. So that's the management pack for storage devices. And these three that I'm showing you here, these are all VMware developed, okay? So when you get the addition of Advanced, as we mentioned, vRops Advanced, you get these VMware management packs. You're entitled to use those, basically, right? As Ben called out, Mike, in the front here, there's some third-party packs as well. Some of the actual hardware vendors that have hardware, like EMC, they have storage hardware, obviously. So they developed their own management pack for vRops to monitor Vmaxes and VNXs and symmetrics and everything like that, right? Blue Medora has taken over some ownership of some of the third-party developments. For example, they now have taken over the NetApp management pack. There's some other ones. Are you guys doing the VCE now or coming up or something? I can't remember what's happening with that.
UCS.
So UCS, that was it. Sorry, UCS just came out. There's a SQL Server. We step into applications as well. There's a SQL Server one that just came out. So there's a lot of third-party stuff that's, if you start to see them side by side, you're like, oh, these look like the same people developed them. That's because Blue Medora is taking over ownership of a pretty good chunk of the third-party development. But again, these are the VMware written ones just to monitor your SDDC, and you're entitled, and they come with vRealize Ops Advanced Edition. Got it? Make sense? Cool. Just a little bit more to dive into the management pack for storage devices. This is brand new. In this release, it's vSAN 6 support. Anybody running vSAN in their environment, virtual SAN? Wow, I had heard there was a lot more than that. So virtual SAN 6, right? So vSphere and the vSphere edition and the virtual SAN edition match up. So if you're running vSphere 5.5, you have virtual SAN 5.5. If you're running vSphere 6, you have virtual SAN 6. So this management pack is going to cover your visibility into virtual SAN 6. And what this basically gives you with MPSD, remember I said it covers the storage fabrics, but if you're running virtual SAN, you're going to get the equivalent of having a third-party storage pack installed by giving you that deep granular visibility all the way down into your spinning disks and every component of virtual SAN. So that's kind of a big deal. This is, a lot of people ask me, hey, I have MPSD and I also have this kind of storage. Am I going to get visibility into that storage? And you're really not until you get that third-party management pack. So we say they're better together, right? So MPSD plus the NetApp pack. That gives you everything in the middle between your host to the storage, and then the NetApp pack gives you that visibility down into the NetApp array. Same thing with EMC, right? MPSD gives you that everything in the middle, and the EMC gives you that visibility down into the array. And once again now, MPSD gives you everything in the middle, also including all the metrics down into virtual SAN. So all the if you have multiple virtual SAN environments, you're going to get one global view, basically, in vRops. You could have them all registered in the same vRops instance or cluster and see all of your vSAN environments in one place, right? There's some other tools out there for vSAN, but this is the one thing they don't do. They don't allow you to consolidate your views from multiple vSAN environments, right? Something else, the obvious things we give you, vRops is known for capacity and trending and so forth, so we'll give you all that information from a vSAN standpoint. And then the troubleshooting, the recommendations, the alerts, and all of those things that go along with virtual SAN, those are all included in MPSD. So again, if you're running virtual SAN, MPSD is going to give you everything in the middle and all the way down into your storage domain, basically. So that's kind of a cool deal. And that's brand new in the MPSD that just came out 2 weeks ago, I believe. So that's brand new. We talked a bit about extended solutions. We mentioned, Blue Medora that's going through a tear right now, just running through a whole bunch of these management packs that were just recently released. You can see the list here, and this list grows and grows and grows almost daily. So there's a website called Solution Exchange. Are you familiar with solutionexchange.vmware.com? That's the house where you go to get these products, right? So all the extensible solutions for vRealize Ops, and in fact, also for Log Insight content packs, for VRO workflows, all of those are found on Solution Exchange. So again, the URL is solutionexchange.vmware.com. And again, this is just a small list. I believe the last time I looked at this, there were close to 100 VR Ops extendable solutions, right? So you can manage pretty much almost anything you have. And if you don't see something out there, if you're like, hey, I have this particular storage array or this particular unit, and I don't see a pack for it, let us know, and we'll get the word out to there's demand basically for those management packs, and get either Blue Medora or the vendor themselves to start generating something for that. Okay. And that might be it. So now the sky is falling, and I give it back to Big Ben.
All right. So let's get back on track a little bit. So
What, I was off track?
no
Come on.
message. How about back on message?
All right.
So management packs, solutions, terminologies that we use. What do they mean? What are they made up of? Why do you care? What's the value? What's the interest, right? So, management packs, marketing term, somebody somewhere made it up. From a VR Ops perspective, it is a technology that adapts to the thing you want to watch, and then more importantly, a set of assets that add value to the data that is collected, right? So, from a high level, it's dashboards for your NOC, or that can be customized and made available for your NOC. It's dashboards that are valuable to the application owners like SQL, SAP, Oracle, right? It's views that give you deeper, finer, detailed information into the capacity reporting and the metrics that we're pulling together. It's alerts and symptoms and recommendations on how to respond. In VCOps 5, so who's got VCOps 5? Right? There is very little of this in there, right? Assets to add value. Customers said, hey, you're telling me that the sky is falling. Now what the heck do I do, right? Great. CPU is at 105% utilization. I got contention everywhere. But now what? I don't know. I don't have the time, the people to go find the answers all the time. So when we changed over to 6, we took a completely different approach. We took the approach, first and foremost, that the center of the universe no longer is New York. Oh, wait, vCenter. It is everything, right? So any adaptive technology that we use that pulls in information is equal to anything else. So I'm not saying that the assets are equal, but the engine, from an analytics perspective for performance and capacity, uses that data equally. So if we're pulling in NSX information, it is just as important to the engine as the VM information, the NetApp data that we're pulling in, the SQL data that we're pulling in, right? The EMC Symmetrics information, the application information from SAP or HANA or whatever, it's all treated by the engine the same. This is not the case in your 5X release of VCOps. In VCOps, the center of the universe was vCenter, right? So now that we've treated the data equally, and the data is now the most important thing, let's wrap some value around that data. Let's reach out to these subject matter experts that understand SQL Server. Let's reach out to the vSphere guys in our own community. Let's reach out to the community through Solutions Exchange, and this part is growing still. And let's say, build us some assets, build us some content that you, as a subject matter expert, would find valuable, right? Don't just tell me that CPU is at 100%. Tell me that this failure and this failure and this failure rolled together mean this. And then give me a set of recommendations to tell me what to do with that information, right? In 6.1 and 6.0, we created something called the action framework. And it's attached to a recommendation that says, the sky is falling, here's your proposed solution, and here's an action that you can take to remediate. Now, that action framework is not visualized outside of vSphere. Breaks my point that vCenter is not the center of the universe. I understand. But the framework is there, and we're moving forward. So the recommendation says, do something to fix this, then the sky is falling. An action goes and does that. Well, that action could be anything. We'll talk about that. So going back to value, these recommendations, these alerts, these symptoms, these dashboards, these views, these reports are coming as part of that management pack that he was talking about. You have the ability to take them and customize them for your own purposes and even share them out to the community. Let's drill into one area of this because we only have a certain amount of time. Let's look at alerts, right? So alerts in another system means that 98% CPU utilization, tell me, right? Send me an email. What do we do with those 400 emails we get in an hour? We write a rule in Outlook that throws in the garbage, right? So the idea here is instead, let's visualize that information. Let's visualize that in the tool. Let's make these alerts far more robust by adding multiple symptoms, deep if-then-else logic, right? And let's make them intelligent. And then once we make them intelligent, let's attach some roles to them, right? Because the SQL guide doesn't tell that SAP is falling apart, even if I would argue that if SQL Server is behind SAP, right? Let's roll some roles around these things, and let's supply them as a valuable asset to different people in our company, in our lines of business. Let's send these, based on these roles, send these alerts out to where they need to go, not just present them on the screen, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. And if I find, I think one of these is a laser. If I find an alert for an application that affects my area of expertise and I like it, but I want to twist it a little bit, I want to add some internal information. So when I was at AT&T supporting the Blockbuster account, one of my jobs was to look at all of the application alerts that came out and write documentation to save me from what? Being called at 3 in the morning or having AT&T get a $50,000 fine for an outage. Why? Because I wrote documentation that could be handed to a junior person so that they could follow the recommendations on how to respond. So I didn't get called at 3 in the morning. These recommendations bubble up, give you a set of information, what's been trending, criticality, ownership, how they affect the enterprise, where they are in the infrastructure, what they're doing, how many symptoms have rolled up to create this thing, and what is the recommendation to respond. And now, I want to respond by clicking a button to fix something. Or I want to respond by pushing a button to open a ticket in my ticketing system. I might want to do that across multiple hosts. I have a large outage. So you can't see it in here, but if there were multiple objects affected by this alert and I wanted to action on all of them, the engine will distribute it. One of the options is to send that out to some kind of orchestration engine. Who's ever heard of Orchestrator? Who uses it? Who understands that you own it already? Everyone in this room owns it. Don't ask to buy another one. You've got it already. But by all means, go buy another one, right? I get you guys at the booth all the time complaining about prices and stuff. We got a bunch of free stuff and nobody ever uses it. I understand, it's kind of hard. You could talk to him, he knows all about it. But it's a full-blown systemic orchestration. It handles long-running transactions. It looks at nuclear transactions and breaks them apart. It dehydrates a transaction if you have to wait for an approval. It does all these things. It integrates with tons and tons of outside sources, like your ticketing system, like PowerShell, like databases. It does all this stuff. So if I want this button to do something very, 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 very complicated, I can do that with the tools that you have today, right? Okay, so let's demo a use case. Who's got SQL Server? Who's the DBA responsible for SQL Server? The one dude points. He goes like this, and he points to the guy next to him. I'm with, yeah, that guy. So the one SQL Server, was there another DBA in the room? I only saw this guy. All right, well, we got one or two. Another guy pointing at another guy. All right. So I apologize for all, the reason why I'm asking is because I vetted this use case against a couple of SQL guys, and so if it's not the right use case, it's not the point. The point is, I want to show you some functionality, show you what you can do, the power that you can do. What I'm going to show you is someone set up a database and turned autogrowth off, and then they made the file really small. And then they started pumping data into it. And you can understand what happens next. Wow, that was not what I wanted to do.
Wait, well,
I just went back in time.
It's going to get dangerous.
This is why he doesn't allow me in the lab.
Exactly.
Look, I get stuff done. All right, so the use case, very simple. I got a database. It's called growth off. Oops. It has auto growth off. The file size is set to 6 meg. I wonder if I'm going to be able to fill this up. Oh, anybody know? Here's a nice little trick, tip of the day. Did you know that you could get really cool graphics with your login screen? It's a fling, check it out. There's a fling, Google it, it's easy.
It's not a fling. It's basically you modify the login JSP file and you drop your images on the appliance. William Lamb has written a blog about it, so just Google William Lamb change VROps login screen.
You don't want to see the pictures that Jeff put up here first.
Sure, let's see them.
I didn't capture that on purpose. This was my picture, by the way. So I log into VROps. All right, I've got a database. It is set really small and auto growth is off. I'm hammering it with a Python script that's loading a bunch of garbage data into it so that I can bubble up an alert. I log in as the SQL administrator ID into VROps, roles, right? I see in my alert inbox that I have an alert on a database called growth off. Let's go click that alert. The alert says, hey, doofus, we got some file growth, but auto growth is off. Our recommendation is that you stop being stupid and you enable auto growth. Click. Now, I'm going to stop here. I do not suggest that you all go out and tell your DBAs, I'm going to send an action directly to your database, because he's going to throw something at you. What's actually happening in the background is a workflow, an orchestration workflow with error handling. This is not calling SQL directly and going click, right? This is PowerShell and some workflow and some automation and some approval and some error handling and that kind of stuff, right? So if this is instead click button, send ServiceNow ticket to me. Send ticket to me because he needs to set autogrowth back on. That's what I would suggest here. Send it to that guy right there. So We gather, for long-running transactions, a handshake ID. We track the process of the external things that we're connecting to. We can handle stuff coming back, messages. Ryan felt it, or Eamon felt it was required to say hello to his mother at this point. We handle the full life cycle of the process, and we respond back with vRops saying, it's done. We can assign ownership, we can set the criticality low, we can turn off the alerts, the alarms, the bells and whistles, right? All part of the process. And simply because I'm a New Yorker and I have to prove, there you go. So we've turned autograph back on. We've set it up to a maximum of 100 meg with autograph on. Now, I manually push the button to do that. In 6.1, we can simply tell it that this is the automated response to this recommendation, this alert. Go ahead. Yeah, it's because I broke the slides. I did that on purpose.
You did it on purpose.
Hey, my butt's in the background too, I have you know. I'm actually doing pretty good. Okay, so how do I start from here? It's like F7 or something, right? There you go. Play from current side. All right. So let's talk about real world customer use case, right? Something that hopefully will resonate with all of you. Idle VMs. This came in through PSO. That's why there is some obfuscation. This is actually real screenshots from documentation from the customer, right? They wanted to automate the cleanup in their dev environment for idle VMs, right? They simply wanted to shut down idle VMs to reclaim some capacity, right? So what did they do, right? In vRops, they built a policy in vRops. By the way, if you don't know policies in your 6.0 implementation of vRops, learn them. If that's your job, if your job is to know vRops inside and out, I would start with policies. So they built a policy that defines what an idle VM is. What does it mean to be idle? Is it CPU percentage utilization? Is it memory utilization? Is it time period since the last login? What is it? What makes this thing, what makes this VM idle? And then we set the action in that policy for that alert to automatic. Nobody gets an alert on it. Nobody has to push a button. It's just automated. It then calls a series of orchestrator workflows. Now, this could be any process engine. This could simply be emails, right? This could be send off an email and tell somebody to turn off their stuff. But instead, there's a set of approvals, there's checks against it to confirm, there's an email to the owner of the VM to say, hey, we're about to turn off your VM, and this is why. Here's a URL to click and tell us no. And then maybe there's another branch in there to say, well, we need, you're not high enough on the food chain to necessarily make this decision, so let's go back to someone else and verify that this is it, right? And then we simply go in and we issue the shutdown procedure for the VM. Possibly migrate it off to cheaper storage, right? That vSAN stuff that, sorry. All right, so let's switch gears. This is the final slides. I think I only have 2 or 3 left. Let's talk about what vRops can do for applications for capacity. And this has changed recently. You cannot do this in 5x. This is new capabilities in 6.0 and 6.1, and the ecosystem that we talk about for building management packs is starting to respond to our customers and build a better, more valuable solution. There's a solution out there from Bloomador. I know you've heard their name 3 times. I apologize. That is for SQL servers, right? So it is a management pack that has an adaptive technology that talks directly to SQL servers. It's read-only. It just goes out and gathers information, and it visualizes that information for you. And there's a set of alerts and symptoms and recommendations and dashboards and all those things that I talked about that are really, really cool. But one of the things, go ahead. That would be enterprise because it's an application. One of the cool things that I discovered that they did was that our SDK requires this, but not everybody follows it. Even our own internal adapters don't necessarily always follow this. They're driving capacity information to the capacity engine for the application. So if you're not familiar with VROps 6, this won't sound as fabulous as I feel it is. But in 6.0, with the management packs we had before, our capacity calculations, the information we were giving you about percentage utilized and where you are and how much resources you have left and how you can plan to build out for the future, was really restricted to one object, vSphere, right? But as that ecosystem is growing, these management packs are just adding value and adding value. And this one now allows you to go in, and I don't know if you can read this, but this is actually the database capacity information. So if anyone's familiar with this screen here or this screen here, this is reclaimable capacity. It tells you in the visualization where you are on how much resources you have today and how you're using them, right? And then this is projects for that object that allows you to do what-if analysis, right? So an easy example is, what if I add 3 more hosts to my cluster? What will the world look like? Where will my shortfalls be based on storage, memory, network, and CPU utilization, based on allocation and demand modeling, right? What will the world look like if I were to add 3 hosts, take away 2 hosts, add 300 VMs, right? What can you use this for? Hardware refresh cycle, right? I'm about to refresh one of my production clusters. It's 30 hosts. They have a completely different hardware model, completely different set of capacity. I want to see how many hosts I can save. So I build out a project that knows about my current running workloads, profiles that for me already because it's looking at all that stuff. Build a project and I say, I'm going to bring out 35 new hosts in this new cluster. They're going to look like this. They're going to have this amount of resources available to them. Now show me my running workload in that. What's it going to look like? And then start removing and adding hosts to that. And look, right there, that's where my new cluster looks like, based on my current running capacity. Well, new management packs are coming out. We're diving deeper into the VM. We're now looking at the applications. So now I can build projects and plans, and I can do what-if analysis on this failover cluster instance environment. I want to add 30 new databases. And they look like the running databases I have now, or they look like this new thing, right? Because we have the ability to build a profile that tells you what the object looks like, right? How much storage it uses, how much memory it uses, right? And I think that's it. Again, outstanding only. I will accept only that.
We
questions?
We left some time for questions too, guys, so
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have more than 25 minutes for questions, so you can ask questions now. You can come up as we're standing here. We have a competitive team that, to be honest with you, I prefer not to sit here and compare a competitive product to VROps. we handle data differently. We do a form of machine learning where we actually look at what's normal in the environment, not just set a set of agents out to determine what metrics are at what given time. Yeah, there's no capacity. And I hear that visualization in SCAMA is pretty rough, but I don't know. Yep. Good.
So we just bought vRealize.
Okay.
But I'm in a vSphere 5.1 environment.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to upgrade to 5.5 or 6? I mean, I heard a lot of having to do 6 to get the most out of it, but just be able to.
I honestly don't know. Do you, Damon? Do you know the compatibility between 6.0 and 5.1? I think it'll support it.
We're up 6.1 on 5.5.
Okay.
Well, I know we can run it, but he's 5.1. Yeah. I believe it's fine because it's pull from vCenter.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've been so long waiting. We were about ready to do 5.5 and heard 6.0 was out soon, which it was. And so we'll just wait, but still haven't upgraded yet. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Sure.
Just a quick question. So basically in capacity management, you can actually look at your current resource usage and build those project plans to look at the what if analysis there.
Mm-hmm.
So is there like specific dashboard that's on these projects that or
It's under the object. So let's say you want to do capacity planning for project or for clusters. Go to a cluster object, and the screen on the right-hand side will fill out. You'll go to analysis and projects. 2 clicks. Yep, no problem. Yep, thank you.
I had a question. So for the VROps to work, do you have to have vCenter or can you just not
You don't. Oh wait. So you're looking for ESXi capacity without vCenter. Yeah, no, we only pull from vCenter. We don't talk directly to ESXi hosts. Because essentially, just a little more sort of insight into that, VROps, generally speaking, is not the thing that creates the data. We are the ones who consume and analyze the data. So even if we're talking to Oracle Enterprise Manager, or sorry, if we're looking at Oracle stuff, we're talking to Oracle Enterprise Manager. If we're looking at IBM stuff, we're talking to Tivoli, right? So, and the reason for that is because those tools exist. The people who specialize in those areas are not going to give those tools up. They've been living with them for years, and they already have all that data. And also, we don't want the massive data. We only want the key performance indicators. So we're going to be very selective when we talk to those systems and just pull things that are really going to tell us that the sky is falling or not.
I actually have a specialized use case where I don't want to use vCenter. I'm actually a VMware.
Okay.
I work on SX.
Yeah, I think come by. I mean, we're in TMM. Dave, talk to Dave Overweek, myself, Lavinia. I'm in the gal. Yeah. All right, cool. I'm going to rely on you guys to tell me who's next. All right. That's right. Mm-hmm. No, actually on the advanced and enterprise level. So advanced, you have the ability to pull in OS metrics, and that's through an agent. Mm-hmm. Yep. Or some other tool that does it. Yeah. Who's next? All right, she is. You're the only lady here. You got to go next. All right.
So we have VROps.
Mm-hmm.
Say somebody comes, I want to do capacity planning.
Mm-hmm.
Someone says, so I want for our development team says we want like 10 VMs or something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to do some resource planning and build
Mm-hmm.
some kind of, say, how much do we have, if we allotted this much to them,
Mm-hmm.
start doing that. But
Mm-hmm.
can I do that and create a report so I can just handle
Yeah, so that's actually not there yet, but it is coming. The ability, so we can build projects, right? We could do what if analysis, but there are capacity reports, but they're not really based on the what if analysis, right? So it's sort of like at this point from a report perspective, so the offline kind of content for capacity management, we provide all the forensic evidence and you sort of kind of have to go do your what if analysis. But it is definitely on the roadmap. It's been requested by lots and lots of customers that we take something like what was here. Oops, sorry. We take this kind of thing here and this visualization and we bubble it up to a report. We can take that and we can stick it in a report, but it's a PNG file, so there's no interaction and stuff like that. So it is definitely on the roadmap for that kind of thing. More,
So really there's no good tool that I can use for, this is comes up
I'm going to change your answer. There's no big red easy button right now.
because I'm basically using an Excel spreadsheet.
Then you need to look at, or what version are you on? Are you on 6? So okay, so the answer is go to 6. 6 has,
There's some features to do.
yeah. So in 5, views and reports and dashboards are quite different. They're far harder to build. You actually have to modify an XML file to build a custom report that gives you the information. In 6, there's a nice GUI. No, vRops 6.
I am on VROP 6. I just said
Okay.
ESXi right now.
5.5, but vRops are on 6. So you need to go into the different object types that you're looking to do capacity management on and look for the capacity reports. I would also suggest you go to a website that is vmware.com/go/VOA. vSphere Optimization Assessment. It's a free set of tools and a set of reports that give you a lot more of that out-of-the-box content. We're adding that to the tool as we go forward, but what I was driving towards for your answer was more like this. I want to do what-if analysis, and I want to spit out so, yeah. You can't spit this out, but there are lots of reports. Have you gone through those reports? If you're still on a spreadsheet, you're not looking at the reports.
I created a couple of reports, but what I got out of it was not as sophisticated as I thought it would be.
It is, I think the challenge is that there's too much data there. So you need to find a way to boil through. Yeah.
Okay, all right, you guys were awesome.
He's been really patient.
Well, I've been listening to all the answers.
Yeah, there you go.
My question is, we got it installed, got it set up, but of course there's tons of functionality and tons of stuff there. Do you recommend any particular resources from books or websites to go to that you say this is really good?
Yeah, so who's the top blogger for VROps right now? Jason Goodrow. Yeah. Yellow Bricks, Duncan Epping for vSphere and storage, I know that. Jason Goodrow. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Google's your friend. We do an amazing job of spidering everything, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sunny I know. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I just need a place to start.
I'm too lazy to write blogs. That's my problem. Mostly it's because they give it to me as a job. Yeah, there is a VROps, but is it 6.0 or 5X? Is it? And who is this? Iwan Ra, IWAN.
IWAN.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right.
Volume mount points.
Say that again.
RDMs use VMPs, volume mount points within their database servers. And one of the things, we attach a disk and then they mount it to a folder.
Okay.
So the monitoring functionality we talked about before about we do
We're going to be weak because we don't see that. We don't see that. That's where you need some external source to see that, right? Because we're not going to see the performance of that mount point, right? We're not even going to see it as a VMDK or anything, right? It's a.
Yeah, we get requests to extend the backup VMP, like whenever one of the database backups fails, they're like, well, you had another VMP.
So you would need something that is seeing the size of that, where it's coming from. See if you can find a source for that, bring that in as an adapter, and then you could probably it's really easy to set up a symptom and an alert, right? There's a workflow that's very, very simple. Yeah. What backs it?
VMDK on the NetApp storage. I mean, we attach VMDK, and then they
Oh.
They don't provision it to drive numbers.
So the NetApp Magic Pack will show you what's happening. So what you'll need to do, because we won't, that's right, what we won't know necessarily is the relationship between the NetApp file, right, because that's effectively what it is, and the object it's attached to. But you can go into object relationship in VROps and say this thing maps to this. and how it affects it, right? So you can build that relationship for you, and then you would build a symptom alert based on that and bubble it to the actual VM object. Yeah, yeah, no problem.
We currently have the vSphere with operation management.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get to vRops from there?
So vSphere with operation management is vSphere with vRops, but it will most likely be standard. So you need to go to a vRealize suite most likely, and then it'll be based on whether you want advanced or enterprise, depending on whether you have operating system requirements or application requirements. By the way, licensing gives me the hives, but yeah. Yeah, you need a vRealize suite. And then it'll be log insight and a couple of, VRA and that kind of stuff. Or you can buy a la carte 25 packs. Yeah, all right.